more early game focus, because I really feel like if that game goes, you know, maybe 5 minutes longer in terms of being closer in the middle game, Gabe probably end up on top because their late game composition was so good between the Double Hunter, the Frenzy, and that Shogun's Kasari.
But the call coming out of United on the Fire Giant prevented any comeback potential out of Memory of Gabe, just closing it out there. Very risky call, high risk, high reward, but it worked out for them. If Memory of Gabe was there just ever so slightly shorter, maybe like 3 seconds earlier, what if they steal it there? What if they manage to get back in it?
Could have been a totally different one. Either way, it was the United who got the Fire Giant and the Game 1 victory. They're in the first pick position here in the very similar bands, Serket and Terra this time around. United does not want to prioritize it. Gabe, they're going to ban away the Khepri. This leaves open Bologna, Toli, and with how often Benji was playing it at that Gauntlet LAN, it isn't going to be the Bologna, though, because Fafnir is still open as well. So I like this decision from Gabe. Give eUnited a choice, because now Gabe gets one of those two very heavily prioritized gods.
Benji played very well on the Amaterasu. There's no reason to really change things up if you're going to be getting a better option for it. Fafnir is a great addition to eUnited because they love going for these objectives. Fafnir is probably the best support you would want for an objective by going into that Draconic form, getting that AoE coerce, amplifying everyone's attack speed, especially with Toth as well. That is going to be quick objectives for eUnited.
Without a doubt, that Glyph of Pain from Thoth, one of the things that we don't really talk about too much in terms of what it brings to a team, but objective control, siege damage, just putting that in front of an objective and letting you and your hunter go to work on it can really make a big difference in terms of DPS. eUnited's composition is terrifying in the first 3 picks. Fafnir, Thoth, Bologna. In Memory of Gabe, they're going in a completely different direction. They're not going for these meta picks that everyone else is looking for. They're playing their own style here. Athena, Nemesis, and Kukulkan for Herwind.
Well, it's not going to be the Kurtanos last pick for Memory of Gabe this time around, opting for the Kukulkan, something that we haven't really seen out of Herwind specifically, but definitely fits his theme of his name.
Yeah, I mean, Herwind, whenever he was first coming into that mid lane, he was, you know, moving around a lot in terms of roles, and when he first settled down in the mid lane, Kukulkan was one of his signature gods for sure. Very, very comfortable on it, just a god that we haven't seen particularly in the meta in a while, but it is guaranteed damage on a Fafnir once he starts that transformation. It's a guaranteed ultimate onto him as well, so you can really use that burst damage and lockdown that Kukulkan can have effectively up against the Fafnir, but eUnited continues to try and go for the control route. Jingwei, the knockup, Hunbats, Fear No Evil. That's a pretty good ability if you haven't heard us talk about it before. A lot of control on eUnited's roster.
Also, a little bit more control for Memory of Gabe with that last pick Ymir option. They already have the Athena to set up some of these Kukulkan, Tornado, Spirit of the 9 win combinations, and now you're going to have a wall and a freeze. It's going to be very difficult for Chaos on this top to get away from these walls.
The wall definitely going to be big here. Let's get right into game number 2 between eUnited and Memory of Gabe. And I'm looking at this roster, Toli, that they've drafted. Wouldn't be surprised if that was Kiki so cheeky with that Athena in the solo lane. That's exactly what it's going to be. This is a goddess that he's practiced a solid amount in that solo lane. And you go back to his days playing support, this was one of his signature characters there as well.
Athena's very effective in the solo lane to be able to just safely clear with your third ability. You use your passive, you use your charge to be able to get to the archers. You throw your passive towards the enemy god solo lane. You stack up the minions, then you drop your 3 on the whole wave. Easy peasy, you clear the wave.
Uh-oh, Herwind in trouble. Has to use a purification beads, but Benji is here. The slow on top of the slow, and Benji's gonna get the first blood. No wards there for Memory of Gabe, and so eUnited end up on top very early.
Benji not gonna teleport to his tower. Instead, we're just gonna walk on over because of the way Kiki started the laning phase. He opted to go for his own blue. He has Hog, he has Bumba's Mask. Now it's gonna allow him to stay relevant in the laning phase really well, because Guardians have a difficult task as to using their mana consumption, but this time around, Kiki won't have any issues in the early game.
And I like the Wrath pickup for Kiki, not only because it helps him clear his own jungle, as you mentioned, but he's got that ultimate that gets him to wherever he needs to go without any teleport. He could go for teleport in that second slot if necessary once he hits level 12, but that ultimate kind of fills the same role the teleport would anyways. Verizial and Chaos here trying to get these fire elementals over top of the damage from Memory of Gabe. They'll settle for the 2 little ones and allow Gabe to get the big. Now it's the dual lane for eUnited do secure the red. I like what the dual lane from Gabe is doing, but they decide to give up the weight Just taking a little bit too long on these back harpies.
Also didn't want to commit too far deep into the jungle out of eunited. It was a smart little ploy to maybe cut off the escape path, or rather the entryway back into the duel lane. But because they knew that they were the back harpies, look what they've done thus far in the duel lane. They've denied them one melee minion. It may not seem like much, but that still adds up if you can do that for multiple waves.
Plus, you're keeping that wave close to eunited's tower, which makes it more difficult for them to get to fights in your own jungle. That makes it more difficult for them to invade on that left-hand side. There's the blink forward by ionic, finds both with the freeze. Got what he came for. That purification beads is all ionic really wanted there.
And not only that, all these minions to entering the tower is going to deny a lot of gold for both Panicat and PBM. So far, so good coming into the duel lane out of memory of Gabe, despite giving up that first blood from Whirlwind.
Cynosure has gone for Sunder in the jungle up against a Hunbats, where that's one of those characters where Hunbats in the game, okay, I need beads right away. Cynosure has to be very careful to make sure that Verizial does not track him down with that Fear No Evil ultimate, because yes, Nemesis has a shield that can absorb some burst coming from Chaos or Panicat or Benji, but I doubt he'd get a chance to get out of that fear before he got a chance to use his 3.
Kiki has to be very mindful because of that lack of defensive relics coming out of his jungler, so that Defender of Olympus will keep Cynosure alive if timed correctly to avoid a lot of the burst potential out of the jungler from eunited. Not to mention Chaos has a lot of burst damage as well, so you know, high risk, high reward, but this is something that Cynosure is easily known for, making some of these plays, and maybe his mindset has changed a little bit into the second game where he feels he needs to make more plays, because that first game he was a non-factor.
I mean, he did a good job of coming back despite Verizial being up, you know, he was 5-0 at one point. Cyno ended up ahead in XP at one stage after those 2 deaths by Verizial. I felt like Cynosure was a pretty good factor in game number 1, but clearly not enough in order to win Gabe the game. Trying to be that game-changing factor this time around.
Let me put it a different way. He wasn't the facilitator that his team needed him to be. He was responding to the action coming out of eunited instead. And I think this time, by going the Sunder against the Hunbats instead of the Purification Beads, he doesn't necessarily care about all these Fear No Evils. He's going to be the one maybe necessarily avoiding Hunbats and going for ganks against somebody else.
Fair enough in that term. And now Snoopy and Ionic, after clearing their purple, will prioritize these oracles, losing an entire wave most likely to that tower. Really prioritizing that Gold Fury vision because of how quickly eunited can do it with that Fafnir, as you mentioned.
Though nice little stun from PBM, but not able to steal away any of those Harpies. So vision going the way of memory of Gabe, like you said before. A lot of objective control. Once PBM hits level 5, he too goes for a Sunder instead of that Girdle of Frenzy, not really caring at least before level 12 to get these Gold Furies with that relic.
Yeah, we've seen some Fafnirs in the past go for Frenzy as their second relic because it just makes what Fafnir does well already just absolutely catapult into the stratosphere, basically, with that increased attack speed and damage. But again, maybe a shell would be more necessary here. Whirlwind on that Kukulkan's going to be putting out solid AoE damage, as well as a sprint would be very nice because of how many slows Gabe have. I mean, not only does Kiki have a slow on the 1, is Kiki going to get ganked on the right-hand side, but the body block from the minions might have saved his life there, as Verizial couldn't close the gap to use the Fear No Evil effectively. But Kiki's got a slow on the 1. Cyno's got a couple of slows in his kit. Whirlwind with a very strong slow on Zephyr. Ionic, of course. I mean, there's plenty of slows to try and cleanse if United want to go for a sprint.
We haven't really seen too many sprints, unfortunately, out of a lot of players or teams, despite the insane upgraded effect. To gas pedal your whole teammates for 5 seconds is no laughing matter, especially when a lot of teams have been going for these double hunters, whether it's a physical or a magical.
Ionic in trouble, Sunder there, but a well-timed ultimate coming out of Kiki will take a lot of that damage away from eunited. Really well-timed ultimate from Kiki. That was not a lot of time to save his support.
Not at all, and that Defender of Olympus mitigating so much damage. Ionic not even going for the reinforced greaves. He has Traveler Shoes, which means that he has a lot of HP 5 when he's outside of combat, but he doesn't have that crowd control reduction. He doesn't have those physical or magical defense in order to survive. Instead, heavily relying on that ultimate out of Kiki, but if investing that ultimate onto your support now, Cynosure, that doesn't have any beads or Aegis, is going to be an easy target.
Exactly. There's so many targets for that Fear No Evil in this game. And so is Kiki. Kiki's an easy target on that right-hand side as well without that CC immune ultimate. Barizio's really the one I'm looking to in this game to see how he can set the pace for United.
So far, he played the bad step pretty well in game number 1. Hasn't had the same opportunities in game number 2. Memory of Gabe grouping up, looking for some sort of action deep inside around the red buff from Memory of Gabe, from United, but not going to find anything quite yet. Still patiently waiting.
Benji is going to get a chance to invade on Kiki's blue buff if he hangs around there, because remember, Kiki with no teleport instead has that Hand of the Gods. Kiki had to back, didn't have his ultimate, so Benji's trying to get it. Kiki knows this is happening and is going to try and get in there and steal it, but the disarm going to be enough to secure Benji with the enemy buff.
That's so disheartening for a soul laner that's invested into Bumba's Mask and the Hand of the Gods. Even going for the Swift Wing, trying to get back to the lane as quickly as possible. This item gives you so much mobility. Now, you don't have the teleport, but this item, this starter item for 500 gold can make up for that. But because he lost his blue buff there, this investment so far has been hurting Kiki instead of helping.
Ionic walls off Chaos, but a good ultimate around the back from Barizio is going to put pressure on a Snoopy, and Chaos is going to pay for it. There's the first kill from Chaos as Sinosure finds the first for Gabe. Ionic gets stunned out after his own ultimate. Panda Cat's going to confirm it with an ultimate of his own, but Chaos is on the run on the backside. No mana left for the mid laner. Kiki showed up and watches as Sinosure kills Chaos. 2 members still alive here for eUnited, or excuse me, for In Memory of Gabe. Only Polar Bear Mike and Benji here for United.
Still looking for some more action here. Sinosure is going to get disarmed, trying to run away from Benji as Panda Cat makes the rotation as well. 3 on 2 around their own red buff. Benji does help Panda Cat secure his own red buff. But like you said before, that 2 for 3, United getting the better end of things. Even though Sinosure was able to clean up Barizio on the backhand side, he wasn't really looking for anything else. There was no much action left for Chaos, as he had no mana to be able to survive either.
And he's gone for the Soul Stone, which is really helps Thoth clear in terms of damage, but not that mana regen that you're really looking for from Sands of Time. Thoth certainly is a little bit mana demanding in the early stages of the game. If you go for something like a Book of Thoth, which really should be good on Thoth because it's in his name, that can really alleviate some of those issues, but Chaos has not had a chance to start up that mana stacking item quite yet if that's what he wants to go for.
There should be like one passive bonus for gods that have an item, have their name in an item. So like, for example, Book of Thoth on Thoth, maybe like just +1 damage on their enhance, and for Chronos the same thing.
Yeah, Chronos pendant. But then I'm fine with that because it's 2 mages. I can't think of any other ones that would...
just give him 1 more damage. What's the worst that can happen?
What's the worst that could happen? I can't think of anything. Benji all alone here trying to get these fire elementals, but look where Barizio is. Benji's looking to play aggressive up and down, taunt into the Nemod, into the Hurrowing Dog, but still not enough until Barizio gets there. Kiki is going to get the kill, but I think eUnited are on top in this early engagement. Chaos going to chunk Sinosure down to half HP. It looks like it's going to be a 1-for-1 for the time being, surprisingly enough, until Ionic almost got stunned out there. Barizio continues to play aggressive, but Chaos is the one who needs to be worried. He's got no dash, no beats either, already used Wild Hunt. He gets turned into bacon. Sinosure cooks him up.
Chaos is left alone, trying to go too heavily onto Ionic. Barizio, without the purification beads, if he got frozen there, he probably could have died as well. It was a nice little stun from his teammates to be able to bail him out, but 2 for 1 there, just eUnited, not at the right place at the right time.
And that was a good idea from Benji, baiting the opposition into that area because of the positioning of eUnited, but I think it was just a half second too early on that ultimate. Didn't get a chance to immune any real damage coming out of Gabe.
Yeah, he took the full damage from Hurwit's ultimate, and on top of that, Barizio, he committed his own Fear No Evil onto Hurwin instead of the other 3 members out of Memory of Gabe. Now, granted, they killed Hurwin very quickly. I believe his purification beads were still down as well, but in order to choose between one single mage that already has his ultimate on cooldown versus 3 other players, I think Barizio could have been a little bit more efficient with his ultimate.
Especially because the other 3 players from Memory of Gabe don't have purification beads.
Yeah.
No one has them. I mean, in that engagement, Barizio had 4 targets with no purification beads, and they only end up with 1 kill. Surely disappointing for the guys on eUnited. I want to go back to the Swift Wing pickup for Kiki because I think this is an item that has flown under the radar, can be very impactful, especially in terms of making it so you don't have to go for teleport as a relic. But with Athena, it's even better because Kiki can back to base, use that ultimate, and then be able to have that increased movement speed whenever he lands from Defender of Olympus.
That's true. For 800 gold, you also get that 5% movement speed. So not only do you get the 40% movement speed when you leave the fountain for 15 seconds, but additionally 5% movement speed forever. But losing his blue buffs repeatedly is not something that Kiki really wants to do. This didn't give up any devs, however, so he's still pretty solid thus far in the laning phase.
Can we take a look at the net worth, please? Because I want to see exactly how much Kiki has lost in terms of gold on losing those blue buffs consistently. All right, we'll take a look at it later. That's fine. Panda Cat is we're gonna take a look at him on this left-hand side. As is this time around for the Hunter, this is very similar to what he wanted to do in game 1, which is sit in lane and just farm it up in the early game. Panda Cat was really not there in the early stages, but came in and made a big impact in the mid to late game stages, and has been a very similar instance here. Snoopy's been the one to make a couple more rotations than Panda Cat in the early stages, but that's basically what you want an ADC to do, right, Toli?
Absolutely, considering he's also with Ionic on the Ymir, but Ionic and Sinosure taking a little bit of damage onto Virizial. No counteraction, though, from a memory of Gabe, just going to walk away cleanly. And Snoopy has been playing aggressive because that's the nature of his dueling partner, Ionic, playing this Ymir with the blink already decided at level 1. If you're not going to be playing aggressive, then why even pick up the blink? So finishing off the style very effectively is the dueling, not a memory of Gabe.
Sinosure, now being level 12, has Purification Beads, had them during that last Fear No Evil, but decided not to use him. The fact that Sinosure had no Purification Beads against the Hunbats, against a composition that has stuns out of the mid, support, and solo, and got to level 12 without any deaths, speaks very highly of his positioning and when he's taking his fights. I think it also speaks to eunited not taking the right fights, as Chaos trying to make sure that Gabe don't get a Gold Fury for free. They deny that teleport in from Benji, but Kiki makes his arrival known with that Defender of Olympus. Has an increased movement speed for about 10 more seconds. You can see him juking around there very quickly. Could look for a taunt engage here.
But now he's in combat, so he loses the 40% movement speed, charging up his dash. Benji on the backhand side, going in.
Benji looking for it, finds 3 with the slow. Final Judgment's gonna chunk down Sinosure, but not enough to kill him. For Rizial, he's gonna be the first casualty. Snoopy notches his first kill. Chaos is gonna follow up and make the Hunter pay, and the rest of Gabe starts to back up. Not enough damage to punch through this tanky support, Polar Bear Mike being in the front line.
Especially considering he's in the draconic form, not wanting to take that fight quite yet, waiting out the duration of that Ionic, looking for potential freeze here. His blink is available. He's still level 11, so he doesn't have that second relic slot, but Memory of Gabe, they're still very content with that slight marginal victory. They trade out Snoopy for Virizial, but they don't really lose much more than that. They're still looking like they're in a good position to continue farming up here.
eunited is up about 1,200 gold, but the experience difference is not really there. In Memory of Gabe, right there in terms of XP.
Not finding anything quite yet, though, in terms of the Gold Fury. Last game at this stage, I think eunited already had 2 Gold Furies to their name, and now they're playing with a more objective-centered support. PBM playing this Fafnir, but hasn't really gotten anything rolling quite yet around that side of the map.
He's been a little bit behind in XP for the majority of this game. Ionic the first to hit level 12 here. Bubba's Mask being, I think, a big reason why Ionic's been able to stay on the map a little bit longer, been a little bit more incentivized to share these jungle camps because of that Bubba's Mask, whereas Polar Bear Mike almost certainly up in terms of that net worth, not only because of the Fafnir passive, but that Lono's Mask pickup as well.
He does have the Lono's Mask, trying to get even more gold, but at the same time, he has defenses elsewhere. We see Traveler Shoes coming out of Ionic, where he doesn't have those defenses, but that gives him 30 gold every single time he tags somebody for X amount of seconds, whereas Polar Bear Michael, they're both have their own different styles. They're still a little greedy by getting, Traveler Shoes versus Lono's Mask, but they're still keeping their defensive options in check.
Benji taunted, Blink Freeze comes through, Nemesis ult as well. Benji this time gonna try and run away. Spirit of the Nine Winds flattens him though, and Hurwind with his first kill. Virizial looks likely to fall as well as Sinosure chasing him down. Both junglers with the speed buffs. Chaos gets turned into the pig. Snoopy's gonna claim it. Sinosure does finally knock down Virizial underneath his own tier 2. Snoopy in a bit of trouble there after the stun from Polar Bear Mike, but not as much trouble as PBM is in. 4 dead now for eunited. Only Panda Cat still stands in memory of Gabe with a very clean team fight.
That mid-game team fight could escalate them to a huge marginal gold advantage. After that Portal Demon now, 750 gold to their name. A lot of downtime here from eunited that they can't farm because of these respawn timers. Finding the Portal Demon, instantly transitioning towards this Gold Fury. Panda Cat without his ultimate, but he could still disrupt it with his Persistent Gust, just not in position.
Very surprised to see Gabe go for Gold Fury instead of Fire Giant in that instance, totally. Only Panda Cat alive, doesn't have his ultimate. Benji was dead with his teleport down as well, and there was no way that anyone else from eunited was going to get there in time.
It's funny because they make calls such as last game. It's like, okay, we're going to do Fire Giant while there's still all 5 alive, and then there's 4 dead. All right, we're going to do the Gold Fury.
I mean, yeah, Gabe just didn't have the same cojones that eunited did in game 1 for sure there. Gabe had the opportunity to grab that buff. Instead, more worried about the gold difference. But even with that Gold Fury, yes, it puts the lead into Gabe's favor, but not by a significant margin. 1,800 gold at 17.5 minutes is barely even elite.
No, not at all, but the 4,000 experience could start to pay dividends here for memory of Gabe. You're looking at who's going to hit level 17 first out of these hunters for the harder hitting ultimate, and the ultimate coming out of Panda Cat is not going to be used offensively more often than not, trying to still have that CC immunity and look for maybe a zoning ultimate, because he used that last ultimate to try to help out Chaos survive, but unfortunately was not the case. Everyone from eunited taking a spill, whereas Snoopy's ultimate Wild Hunt, he doesn't necessarily need it defensively. He's going to look to force out the purification beats every single time with it.
Snoopy's played this game very, very well. In fact, he's doubling Panda Cat's damage. Panda Cat second to last in the game and only, 400 damage more than Ionic at this stage. As I mentioned, this is kind of the idea, though, that eunited want to leave Panda Cat on the island and get him the farm, but if Snoopy's making the rotations and being impactful, then Panda Cat needs to answer that.
But that could easily change, though, at the later stages of the game. Xingwei, once she gets a little bit of crit online, now working towards the fatalities for Panda Cat, these teamfights could spell his way.
Goodbye, Chaos. Heroine gets another kill, and that's the entire composition. Kiki is going to fall here because Panda Cat is going to get a lot more damage than he had previously. Airstrike, the one to confirm it, and a 1-for-1. Chaos just now getting his relics up off of cooldown.
Trading soul laner for the mid laner. It's going to favor memory of Gabe, considering that there's also that global ultimate from Kiki once he gets revived, not to mention Snoopy getting that tier 1 tower in the dual lane. Everyone else, though, getting chased around outside of their own mid tower.
Benji going to take a little bit of damage from Heroine's Tornado. Heroine going for the old school build, man. Double stack. Haven't seen this in quite some time. Do you feel like this is the right spot for it?
That's risking it for the biscuit. He's been heavily focused in a lot of these engagements, which is why he has these 3 deaths. But ever since he had those 3 deaths, he hasn't given up anymore. He's been involved in 2 of the kills, and having the health could help him survive against a lot of the aggression coming out of eunited. It's going to help him survive a little bit longer with the Sunder.
Yeah, Warlock Sash, an item that we haven't seen in quite some time. I think the last person to build Warlock Sash was probably Deathwalker in the solo lane on Cabrakan, I believe was the last time we saw it played effectively. This time in the mid for Heroine. And the stats are great once you get it stacked. It's just that it's not a particularly cheap item, and you need 100 stacks in order to fill it out. That's a lot of waves you have to get consecutively.
Especially when there's a lot of supports and jungles right next to you. It's usually a 3-on-3 in that mid lane, but as long as you allow your Kukulkan to get all the farm with that single tornado ability, it's relatively easy to get those stacks. And memory of Gabe, they're playing for the mid to late game here.
And I like the fact that Polar Bear Mike may have recognized that there isn't any penetration for Heroine at all in that build. It immediately goes for the Heartward Amulet right after the Gauntlet of Thieves. That's a lot of magical protection for anybody near PBM that Heroine has really no answer to get through. It's only the Void Stone coming out of Kiki that's going to augment Heroine's damage so far. But once Heroine gets that Spear of the Magus, right now picking up the tier 2, now he's got some flat pen in that build. It's only going to get better once he finishes off that Spear to get that passive going that increases that protection shred with every tick of the Tornado. that's going to be when this build starts to get really scary.
There's also a lot of other magical damage sources out of Memory of Gabe besides Heroine. Ionic playing the Ymera very aggressively with the Blink. Kiki's damage on the Athena is a lot as well. You can't negate the Defender of Olympus.
Verizio with the Blink forward, fear no evil, but Chaos didn't charge the final judgment, and Cynosure is going to be able to get out of danger. Benji gets knocked up by the Spirit of the Nine Winds, but not a lot of damage onto that tanky solo. Plenty onto the tanky support, and Benji's going to find his third. Not enough penetration to get through Benji's build, and he's going to be able to escape with a sliver of HP. eunited with the only one to find a kill.
But the health is not in their favor. They're having to retreat a little bit under their own tier 1 mid tower, giving some space control for Memory of Gabe to try to go for this half-health tier 1 mid tower. That's exactly what they get.
Sunder was big there to knock down Ionic in that last engagement. PBM looking for the stun onto Heroine, who was a little bit far forward on that bottom right-hand side, but not too far forward, was able to escape A-OK. Now eunited, they're the ones who feel confident. They're going to start up this Portal Demon. Chaos still with that ultimate, does not fire it off as Benji goes around the backside looking to zone away the opposition. Snoopy in, trying to seal it away, is unsuccessful in doing so. Portal Demon goes the way of eunited, and Gabe immediately give up the goose and go back to their side of the map.
What a great job by Benji, just zoning everybody away from that side of the map. Just no option or opportunity. Even Kiki couldn't really get in there, and he needs to be able to get in there. He has the hand of the god. It still does a little bit of damage to confirm some of these objectives. It's not too much, but hey, you got to taunt as well, so you could stop DPS, and then you can secure it with your own relic.
I don't think United know this Gold Fury is going down. They didn't have timer on it after the last fight, and a good job by Kiki to just stand in the mid lane right in front of Chaos and say, nah, there's nothing going on. We're not doing anything on this left side of the map. Gabe get their second Gold Fury and push that gold lead a little bit higher, closer to 3,000 now.
Can't trust Kiki, man. He's just too cheeky.
It's true. Kiki, you know, Kiki was on that that old SMITE roster that everyone ended up getting kicked one after another.
All the X's.
Exactly, and it's just Kiki still standing there. That's one of my favorite pictures, man.
Well, 23 minutes into this game, Memory of Gabe, they're trying to look for the win here in the second game, finding the split would keep them still relevant here in the summer split.
Snoopy in trouble, but Kiki shows up to help him out. Double stun comes through from Benji, but Snoopy still has both relics. Kiki eats a Sunder there. Excuse me, it didn't come out. Just thought he did with that little purple flash. Kiki's going to be able to get out of danger. So a relic and an ultimate used by Gabe, but they get the dual lane tier 2 tower, 1,500 gold across the team. That's 300 per player.
Still looking for even more action to Blake. The ultimate's going to force out the purification beads. Verizio saw Ionic right around the corner, going to be able to juke out. That one is Benji, and now it's Ionic in a lot of trouble.
He could be, but Polar Bear Mike doesn't want to dash in too far because he's losing that Draconic form quickly. Tier 1 tower does fall. Panda Cat shows up to put in that objective damage, and United's going to back up 500 gold now for them.
Gold Fury still down for another 3.5 minutes. Neither team wanting to flirt with the Fire Giant quite yet. Like you mentioned before, that 4-for-1 trade earlier on, or 4-for-0 rather, from Memory of Gabe, they played it relatively safe. They didn't elect to go for the Fire Giant, going for the gold options instead. And if they don't find a way to close out the game, United can easily still get the levels that they need to contest Memory of Gabe in these team fights. There's not that much of a disparity across the board, except for the mid lane.
Yeah, that's the really only difference there. Heroine up 2 levels over Chaos, and it's also done quite a bit more damage. Heroine has had a very solid showing on this Kukulkan. As you mentioned, took 3 early deaths, and I think a lot of that is due to that pretty greedy early game build. No starter item, rushes the Book of Thoth, trying to get that extra power that also synergizes well with the Warlock Sash. We didn't really mention that. Kukulkan getting extra power based on his mana pool. So this double stacking option just means that even though it would be a lot of power on any mid-mage, it's even more with a character like Kukulkan.
Looking for more action in the soul lane. Memory of Gabe group up, trying to get this tier 1 tower. Benji getting zoned away by Snoopy, but Verizio's right around the corner. The ultimate being used, just not hitting anyone.
And now Benji's the first one in, trying to turn this in United's favor. I think Hurwind was looking for that taunt coming out of Kiki, but Polar Bear Mike stunned him right before the taunt came out.
That could have been it. That could have definitely been it. Trying to catch 2 people in the taunt, hitting out those tanky targets with the ultimate, still not a bad idea. But now PBM going into his own ultimate.
Verizio falls low, but gets a big ultimate of his own off. Now trying to juke away. Sinoshure's not going to allow him to, but Panda Cat finds one. Sinoshure with another. Kiki cleans up Panda before he can get into the airstrike. Benji should knock down Kiki here, but a great ultimate from Snoopy over the blue buff wall. Saves the life of his solo. Chaos on the run for his life. The disarm going to stop the aggression for the time being, but Hurwind spits right on top of Chaos, gets that kill. Benji's going to fall to the defender of Olympus. A deicide for In Memory of Gabe, and a great team fight victory for the veteran squad.
This time, no hesitation, especially with the deicide right next to the Fire Giant. First Fire Giant of the game, gonna go in the favor of Memory of Gabe. And they're looking very solid here to close out the second game and finding themselves at least 1 point out of this set.
I mean, even without Hurwind's ultimate. And you know, I don't mind the idea from eunited to say, hey, Hurwind's ultimate's down. That's been a huge problem for us. This is a decent fight. But Verizio just got too far ahead of himself. Got a great ultimate off by every, by every measurable aspect. Hit multiple members, got multiple purification beads, but no one from eunited was close enough to help save his life.
Not having the Mad Guy's blessing, his purification beads was not available for that encounter, and getting chunked that quickly in that team fight is not something you want out of your jungler. Not having the blink either, so that means that whenever he commits to that engagement, normally you want to commit with your blink if you're Hunbats and then use your jump to escape, but not having that option for that encounter means that eunited was playing without their jungler after that ultimate was committed. Sinoshure finding the cleanup kill very quickly on Verizio.
Now Gabe are the ones in control, 15-9. They're up about 7,000 gold at this time. You're right underneath it, but they've got the Fire Giant, so that gold lead is going to get even bigger at this stage. This Gold Fury likely to go down in their favor. I doubt eunited is going to want to take the fight up against a Fire Giant buff team on a neutral objective site like the Gold Fury. And with a couple towers still standing, there's quite a bit waiting to go. Verizio walks in where he shouldn't be and loses his purification beads for it.
That's why you don't face check around corners like that at the late stage. Whenever a team has Fire Giant, you might as well just start conceding some areas of the map. You have to start carrying sentry wards on all 5 players. Look to group up as 5 to make sure no one gets caught slipping. And if you have the trust in your own teammates, then maybe you don't use purification beads because you know they're right behind you to be able to follow up.
If there was any chance of eunited defending that tier 2 tower, it was gone once Verizio lost the beads. So now he does have the Magi's blessing, so a little bit of CC immunity still available to him. It's going to be on a pretty long cooldown once he gets CC.
Nice little sentry ward from PBM, allowing Verizio to hide around this wall. He could look for a blinking gauge here, but instead electing to wait until Memory of Gabe commit under that tier 2 tower. But look how patient this squad in the Chaos side is. They're just not going for this tier 2 tower, instead going for the Portal Demon to be able to spend that golden hand that they've gotten from the Gold Fury from the other towers, taking this portal, and then will commit to that last tower.
Verizio showing some control of his own. Instead of blinking in on top of the 3 backing members of In Memory of Gabe and using the Fear No Evil, decides to hold it. Did not go for that engagement this time around.
Having a different side of things for Verizio. He's normally known to play very hyper-aggressive. We've seen him play very aggressive on the Basset the first game around, a little bit too much so where he got picked off sometimes, but he did bait himself where his teammates found opportunities such as Gold Furies off of it. This time around, 0-4 and 8, not having the same impact as the Bastet.
Yeah, and in the 6-0 and 8 for Sinoshure has been much more impressive for me. Again, just going back to the fact that for the first 12 levels, Sino didn't have beats and still had 0 deaths through that opportunity. No real surprise he's been able to survive since then because he has the purification beads, but good play out of the jungler in his second split in the SPL. Played plenty of splits in the SCL last season, mostly under Allegiance and Most Wanted, but really making his name for himself on the PC side of things this time around.
14 kills he was involved in, 6 kills, 8 assists out of the 15 total from Memory of Gabe, almost having that 100% kill participation. This is the kind of stat line you want to have out of your jungler, being able to really shut down everyone from eunited and controlling the pace of the game. And that was a very difficult task for him to do so, because it was Heroin that got first blooded in the mid lane. Normally it's a trickle effect. Your jungler dies, middle gets affected. Your mid dies, the jungler gets affected. But Memory of Gabe very strong. They weren't deterred from that first death from their mid laner. They all still rallied for the greater good.
And Heroin has done a great job bouncing back from that as well, because it wasn't only the first blood. It was the next 2 kills onto him as well. He was sitting at 0-3 ever since. 3 kills, a bunch of assists on top of that, and an absolute truckload of player damage. I mean, look at that, top of the player damage charts. Now he's got the Rod of Tahuti, likely to be a Polynomicon there in that last slot as well. So good luck handling that whenever he's going to be bursting you for a significant portion just with the Zephyr auto attack combination.
Even missing an ultimate, but still having the top player damage of the game with the protections coming from PBM, with the Gauntlet of Thebes, with that other magical aura item. He has 40 protections for himself and his teammates with just those 2 auras alone. Look at this little triangle of wards right next to Verizio. You think they knew that he was doing back RPs there?
Yeah, this is literally triangulating Verizio's position right now. If
he's
Gabe,
in the Bermuda's triangle right there.
Yeah, completely lost.
He's about to get lost.
Could very well be if he's not careful with this Blink Engage, though. This time around does have his Purification Beads up and that Magi's Blessing, so could be harder for Gabe to turn on the support. Heroin and the rest of In Memory of Gabe looking to force eunited off of this objective. No towers remaining for United. There's the blink and the taunt. PBM the focus, but gets into his ultimate before Heroin's ultimate hits. Now it's eunited on the aggressive. Heroin eats a big chunk from that final judgment. Chaos and Panda Cat grouped and on the run. Sino is going to escape even with that Defender of Olympus on top of him. But that's a good win for eunited. They don't lose any members.
You were talking about the drafting phase of the Kukulkan being able to really counter the Fafnir after the Draconic form has ended to be able to find that kill. But the CC chain against PBM, with that Spirit's Robe, the reinforced Greaves, he has a lot of crowd control reduction, so the taunt coming out of Kiki so Cheeky doesn't last long enough to get all the guaranteed damage out of Heroin.
And the freeze came through from Ionic, so then Polar Bear Mike has diminishing returns, and he's not going to be able to stay in place for as long. Panda Cat has to use Purification Beads, now taunted in and controlled. Aegis comes through. Airstrike as well, just out of danger in time.
Chaos right around the corner. Yannick taking a little bit of poke there. Chaos having to dash on backwards. Everyone else from Memory of Gabe still hovering around here. Heroin has come back to the action. Full health here. Now looking like, is that going to be a Polynomicon out of him?
It looks like it. Could be a Pythagoras piece as well. Boost the damage of everyone on In Memory of Gabe, an item that is severely underpurchased in my mind, but most likely the Polynomicon. That's a combination that's been around forever, that slow into big burst damage on a Cynosure, but a lot of it is immune thanks to the Defender of Olympus from Kiki. Spear of the Nine wins off the mark, but it doesn't matter because Cyno finds the kill onto Verizio, and the rest of eunited now has to run away without their jungler.
It's a long respawn timer, 50 seconds that Verizio won't be in the action. Memory of Gabe having a 5-on-4 power play could look for this Fire Giant, and everyone else from eunited is just going to split and let this go down.
Right, another Fire Giant about to go down, another one for Gabe. That's 2 on the game. They've gotten 3 Gold Furies as well. In Memory of Gabe, definitely high up there in terms of the objective control this time around. And another kill for Cynosure. I mean, we talked about it earlier. His kill participation still almost perfect. Can't get the one back that he lost earlier, but got that kill there. 7, 0, and 8 for the jungler. He's completely full build. He's even upgraded his Sunder. Basically only going to be spending gold on wards and power pots from here on out.
Having 11 KDA, Kiki's next in line around 8.5. This Athena Nemesis combination here, you got that right mixture of offense and defense. Nemesis can dive that backline anytime she really wants to. Cynosure is heavily relying on Kiki to be able to mitigate a lot of that damage with Defender of Olympus.
Without a doubt. I mean, so much has been talked about in terms of Heroin and Cynosure and these damage dealers and how good they've been, but it's like in football where the quarterback says, you know, I had a great game, but it was because of my linemen. It was because of the front line setting up for these guys that are trying to do it. eunited tries to set up once more. Panicat, no beads, and taunted it again. No life for him. Sino with his 8th, a nice 8-0 and 8 scoreline. Final Judgment gets charged, but not fired as Varizio blinks in and finds that ultimate big from Chaos, and that's going to lead to the fall of eunited. Sinosure next on the list. PBM's going to claim that one. A nice sidestep there from Chaos to get out of the way of Herwin's ultimate, and it's a 2-for-1 in favor of eunited.
And they keep their Phoenix alive. Very important opportunity here. A great decision and mindset for eunited to blink onto Panicat, considering his beads was down as well as the Aegis, so that was a very easy pickoff, but over-invested too much onto that Hunter results in a very clean engage from Varizio, catching all 4 members there, and that final judgment out of Chaos, recognizing just how low eunited was, finding the kill onto him, and also clipping Sinosure in the process.
And that's one of the benefits of Thought. Doesn't matter how far behind you fall, eventually, that's going to be a lot of damage coming out of Final Judgment. And that's even without a Rod of Tahuti completed for Chaos, and he only has 4 points in his ultimate. Still has another point to go in Glyph of Pain, so that's going to up that damage even more. So it's not like that Thoth ultimate isn't relevant at this stage.
You just read my mind completely. It's only going to get scarier for Memory of Gabe here, and Herwin's ultimate have only been hitting Benji for the most part in a lot of these encounters. Hitting the Bologna is nice here, but you got to hit more than just that. Kiki's trying to set him up with some of these taunts here, and it was a nice patient opportunity for him not to use his ultimate right away onto Panicat, knowing that both of those relics were down, but needs to be able to find that multi-hit the same way Chaos has done in that last encounter.
And that can be difficult whenever you're not fighting in the jungle. Kukulkan excels at fighting in narrow corridors like this, not only because of the ultimate, but because that whirlwind then covers so much ground. In the lane, it's pretty easy to see a giant dragon come screaming at you from Herwin.
That's true. Another freeze onto Benji. Going to get slowed out. Snoopy's going to get disarmed, so he can't follow up too much here. Stun onto Kiki. Nice little wall. Going to force out Benji with the defensive Eagles rally. The Fatalis on Snoopy is trying to find the kill.
The chase down, but he's in trouble, and Pandacat's going to make him pay for it. The chase was too much. Now it's PBM in the middle of all of In Memory of Gabe, but he's going to be able to leap out. Benji somehow survives again, and Snoopy's the one that pays the price.
Again, Varizio just disrupting every sort of offensive potential that eunited is trying, or that Memory of Gabe is trying to throw back onto them, holding onto their Phoenixes during this Fire Giant siege coming out of Memory of Gabe. They can't find the Phoenixes to close this game out yet.
I mean, and you've probably been in the situation, totally playing for as long as you did. You have these situations where you're ahead by a ton. You've won the majority of the game's team fights, but now that you have Fire Giant, it's time to try and end the game. You just keep running into this same wall from eunited. Is it difficult to stay focused and not get frustrated in situations like this?
Sometimes some players going to have to call it out like, hey, listen, think about the eye at the end of the prize, right? Think about what we need to do as a team, as a collective unit. What's our composition? What's theirs? What do we need to do that works for us? What do we need to do to avoid that's working well for them? And that key aspect here, if I'm Memory of Gabe, is avoiding Varizio's ultimate from being too far grouped up. Now, it's very difficult to really lock him down also because he has that Magai's Blessing and the Purification beads, so they need to play very calculating here.
Taunt onto Benji, freeze as well, but Sinosure this time holds the ultimate. Benji still goes below about half HP, but doesn't eat those ults coming out of In Memory of Gabe. eunited has the blink, but a good hammer from PBM stops that blink from coming. There's the Nemesis ultimate, but again, that crowd control reduction. Polar Bear Mike got taunted for what felt like half a second.
But they force out the ultimate out of Varizio. A nice little short cooldown out of Sinosure by a slightly longer from Varizio, and the more impactful team fighting ultimate. Now that that X factor has been removed from eunited, Memory of Gabe are relatively clean to position themselves any way they want around this jungle.
Both jungler ultimates should be up pretty quickly though, 30% CDR for both. So it won't take too long for those ultimates to be up and available once more. See, Gabe still, you know, they're thinking about trying to find these kills the same way that they have been. But I feel like if they're going to full commit like that, the taunt into the Nemalt, into any damage from Herwin, I feel like Benji's the better tank to do it to because he doesn't have nearly as much CCR as PBM does.
I agree, but he does have that Eagles rally to be able to turn the tide in a team fight, to give his teammates their protections and the power. And if you're going to force something too quickly like that, that team fight could go the opposite way. United trying to gain some positioning around this Fire Giant with Snoopy just now making the rotation on the backhand side.
Virizial has his ultimate and the blink. The Sunders for In Memory of Gabe both on cooldown for another 23 seconds or so. PBM, he's got the longest cooldown to wait on. Shell not up for 45 seconds. That's a big reason why some of these tornadoes from Heroin have not been so effective. Shell excellent against that and Heroin's ultimate as well.
Snoopy having a lot of attack speed with this Odysseus bow and the Shogun's Kusari coming out of Ionic, amplifying that even further. Not electing to go for any sort of crit options at all.
Double taunt there from Kiki, but no real follow-up. Only that tornado from Heroin, but does chunk Benji down a little bit. About 10% off of Benji, maybe a little bit more. He's going to sustain with that Scourge on the back Harpies. Smart play out of him.
Portal Demon now being started by Memory of Gabe. They have a lot of burst damage here with the Polynomicon coming out of their mid laner Heroin. They don't even need to invest into any ultimates, and for a good reason. At the 40-minute mark, investing any ultimates on a very easy objective such as Portal Demon would mean eunited would force issue.
That's a pretty big, small victory. And I know it sounds pretty contradictory because it is, but I'm still going to stick with it. Virizial throws the ultimate onto Kiki, but not a lot of damage onto the solo laner for In Memory of Gabe. Virizial didn't lose the Magi's Blessing or the Purification Beads. But again, that ultimate, that's a big deal to lose.
Questionable ultimate, but an even better wall coming out of Ionic, preventing any sort of further damage onto his solo laner. The Tornado also deters a lot of melee characters to sit around such a defensive tanky target. Fire Giant being pulled by Memory of Gabe. It's less than half health.
United has defended a couple Fire Giant pushes before, but they still don't want to give this up. Eventually they will, In Memory of Gabe, secure their third Fire Giant. I believe all three have been with all members of In Memory of Gabe alive as well. But United has defended the past two. Still, no Phoenixes have respawned. There's no, no one has been knocked down in terms of those Phoenixes for United. So In Memory of Gabe trying to do what they couldn't do the first two times, that's break United's base.
Memory of Gabe are just playing a very slow chess match here. They're not worried about necessarily exchanging pieces here. They're just worried about repositioning themselves until they find that right opening here, finally grouped up towards this dual lane Phoenix.
Kiki did use the ultimate. He back to base and then ultimated in, so he doesn't have that available for that damage mitigation, but plenty of CDR for him in that build, so it shouldn't take too long to come back up. Emperor's Armor from Polar Bear Mike helping buff this Phoenix. That's the little fire parts you see around it, trying to do it. There's the blink engagement from Virizial. Immediately eats Sinoshure's ultimate. He's on the run. So is Snoopy, though. Benji up onto the top of the Hunter, but look at the response. Sinoshure and the rest of Gabe tear through Benji and peel for their Hunter. Another taunt on a Polar Bear Mike this time, but not enough to knock him down. Heroin still has his ult. Everyone from Gabe, in fact, still has their ultimates except for Sinoshure.
And Snoopy was healing off of those back Harpies, so he's still very healthy here in this engage. Finding a blink, but not finding the freeze. The ultimate out of Heroin off the mark by PBM, taking a lot of damage, forced to retreat. The left side Phoenix still trying to get demolished here, but Ionic trying to find somebody in the wall. Not going to find it, but finally, the first Phoenix of the game, Memory of Gabe securing it.
About time is exactly what they're saying. One kill only, though. Benji due to respawn in about 30 seconds. Now it's United trying to defend their mid Phoenix. Sinoshure taking a lot of damage as PBM jumps forward. The Phoenix falls, and now it's Gabe starting to retreat once more. Again, that play looks like that could have been a highlight reel play that we would have seen all split long if Ionic finds that blink freeze, and then Kiki comes down with the Defender of Olympus into the Spear of the Nine Winds from Heroin. But there were so many Purification Beads still up in that scenario that Heroin's ultimate once more just wasn't impactful.
There's the difference between the mindset and knowing how to execute that play there. They know what the play is, but they just need to be a little cleaner about it. But still, all the work and effort from Memory of Gabe is starting to pay off, heading into the 44-minute mark with Fire Giant still around their waist for another minute and a half or so. They got these two Phoenixes, and with Benji now respawning, United is taking advantage of it by just pushing down the mid wave, not allowing these Fire Minions to get too close, but pushing down the mid. It's going to expose that left side that's left open.
Yeah, United looks like they want to take this fight in this scenario, and couldn't really tell you why. I mean, yes, there are some defense. The defensive relics for In Memory of Gabe are by and large down, but not for much longer, but you could say the same for eUnited's carries. PBM gets taunted in, jumps away for Riziel. There's the blink into the back line. Heroin doesn't have his purification beads, but doesn't need him because there's no follow-up for Riziel. He's gonna die to Cynoshirt, double digits now for the Gabe jungler. Freeze onto Chaos, controlled by Ionic, taunted in. 2 kills go the way of Gabe, 3 in total, and now only 2 members remain. eUnited trying to retreat, but Gabe could just march down and end this game.
They really wanted to find a kill onto Snoopy. His relics were down for like 10 seconds whenever Veriziel went in, and the Aegis amulet was down for Heroin for about 40 more seconds. So that was the thought process there. They thought that this was the last-ditch effort, but eUnited couldn't really find anything, which is going to allow in-memory Gabe to find a split.
There it is. Gabe and eUnited split right down the middle.